want to get through as many questions as we can, so we can stay on time. That would be good. And Lily, you are first up.
My name is Lily Eggink, and I am representing the Christian Heritage Party of Canada. Thank you for inviting me. It will be evident tonight that I am not a well-versed politician. I'm a single mother, business owner, and overseas missionary here to fight for what's right. Here I am, participating in politics because of my concern for Canadian governance, which has clearly ignored the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which reads, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. For over 30 years, this preamble has been CHP's solid and unchanging foundation. Life is the primary human right. Without life, no other right exists. It has no meaning. Life is to be valued and respected at all stages. Once we choose to exercise our reproductive rights and enter into reproductive acts which create new human beings, it's no longer a reproductive right issue. We've already exercised our right to reproduce. It's now a human rights issue. These children are equally entitled to their human rights. Abortion is not a charter-protected right and should be defunded. CHP is the only federal party with a policy protecting innocent human life from conception to natural death. CHP fights for all Canadian citizens. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Diane Finlay for the Conservative Party. Thank you to the Haldimand Press. Thank you to the candidates and to all of you for tonight's event. Thank you to the people of Haldimand, Norfolk, for having given me the privilege of representing you for the last 4 years. Have you noticed that new line on the bottom of your gas bill or at the gas pumps, the one that says carbon tax? Well, that's just the beginning. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says that it won't do any good unless it's at least 5 times higher. This means gas jumping 31 cents a litre, groceries and heating all going up, costing the average family over $1,100 a year more. So why is Justin Trudeau doing this to you? Well, he has to find a way to pay for the $57 billion in new promises that he's made and his ballooning debt. He has no plan to return to budget and zero regard for how he's spending your money or your children's money. The Conservatives have a real plan to help the environment and to make life more affordable for you. It comes down to technology versus taxes, and we'll talk more about that later. But speaking of taxes, we want you to pay less. That's why we'll cut the carbon tax, introduce a universal tax credit, increase the seniors' age tax credit, introduce a green homes tax credit, and make parental and maternity benefits tax-free. So as you listen tonight, please consider, who do you trust to make life more affordable so you can get ahead?
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the Haldimand Press, the organizers of this event, and to the candidates, but most importantly to the audience for coming out tonight. It shows you are certainly engaged, and I thank you. Over the years, I've seen much squandering of tax dollars, infighting and bickering among politicians, stonewalling at committees, and politicians working overtime to cover up the truth and to keep secret from you, from Canadians, much that reflects poorly on politicians. Between the Harper years and the Trudeau years, our debt has gone stratospheric. Sure, they spin it well enough. Marketing experts, they are. There's all the scandals of Trudeau tossing cabinet ministers under the bus, the blocked RCMP SNC Lavalin affair, and yes, Houston, we do have a problem. Pick a party. Same old, same old. The old established parties just want to buy your vote. You're going to hear all about it tonight. Been hearing about it for months now in the news. Nothing more, nothing less. Buy a vote here, buy a vote there. Here a vote, there a vote. You get it. Get a vote. Get elected, stay elected. Perhaps tonight we can share some insight into why a change is absolutely needed in Ottawa and here in Haldimand, Norfolk. Enough is enough. It's time to move forward, absolutely, but with new leadership. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you to the Haldimand Press for hosting this very important event. For those of you who don't know me, I am Kim Norval Huffman. I was raised in Haldimand and currently live in Norfolk. My husband Larry and I have raised our 4 children in Haldimand and Norfolk, Carly, Braden, Abby, and Ben. I am truly a homegrown candidate. I plan to keep it that way, as these are my roots, and I want to respect them. I have worked in social services for over 30 years. I am a Norfolk County councillor. I have volunteered my time for the past 20 years coaching our youth in baseball, soccer, and hockey. Along with 4 amazing women, I co-founded the Waterford Farmers Market. My husband grew up on a large dairy farm in Springville and has been employed at the CGC in Hagersville for over 23 years. Needless to say, I am not just passing through. I am here to stay. I am running in this election because we need change, we need vision, and we need an engaged representative for Haldimand Norfolk in Ottawa. The time for change is now. We cannot afford another term of ineffective leadership for our community. I respectfully ask what the Conservative representation has brought to Haldimand Norfolk in the last 15 years. We have no new development in sustainable industry. We have critical water issues. We have thousands of residents without high-speed internet, and the list goes on. There are millions of dollars available for federal infrastructure that we have not been privy to. I live the experience of most residents in Haldimand and Norfolk on a daily basis. First thing I will do as your elected representative is I will host town hall meetings. I will meet with all of the council members of both Haldimand and Norfolk, and myself and my team will be at community events. More importantly, we will be a part of the community.
My name is Brooke Martin, and I'm the Green Party candidate for Haldimand, Norfolk. I was born and raised here, and have always appreciated the immense beauty and opportunity that exist in this area. That's why, after I graduated from Western with a distinction in Bachelor of Science in Nursing, I came right back here and started working in a local emergency room and intensive care unit. I've always been interested in politics and followed it closely, and I was tired of the old line parties going back and forth between them and nothing being accomplished. I looked into the Green Party for the first time and was very pleasantly surprised by what I found. We are more than a one-issue party. I like to call us the party of common sense. We are fiscally responsible. We want to increase investment to areas that are going to save us money or make us money, and reduce investments to areas that are going to keep costing us more and more. We think the government should be more open and honest, and we think MPs should be more independent. They should vote the way that their constituents want and the way that would best benefit their constituents, not the way that corporate lobbyists tell them to, and not the way that their political party forces them to. We think the government should follow science and evidence to guide their decisions, and we think all political parties should collaborate with each other towards common goals to help the majority of Canadians with the problems that we're facing. This us versus them mentality ends up blocking good ideas and wastes everyone's time and money. Tonight, I hope you will consider the Green Party with an open mind, as I did, and realize all that we have to offer. Thank you.
Next up.
Hello, bonjour, sego, scano, and bonjour. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people as the traditional peoples of this territory. I acknowledge and give gratitude to the Indigenous peoples for sharing these lands with us so that we may meet tonight. I would also like to thank you for coming out tonight and the Haldimand Press for organizing this event. I am a secondary school teacher with the Grand Erie District School Board. I am a first-generation Canadian, born of immigrant parents who came to this country to improve their life and explore opportunities. Raised in rural Ancaster, I contributed to our family's subsistence, raising chickens, goats, and ducks. I was taught to work together as a family and as a community to support each other. This is an important election. People are worried about the cost of living, housing, phone bills, and medicine all add up for families who haven't had a real raise in years. We're facing serious national issues like climate change and the challenge of reconciliation that both the Liberals and Conservatives haven't done enough on. Our youth feel hopeless about the future. At the end of 4 years of Liberals in power, young people are still struggling to pay for their education and move into their first homes. There are still boil water advisories on reserves, and family farms are struggling with succession planning due to unfair tax transfers. And that's why we're going to bring in pharmacare, dental care. We are in it for you. That's why we're going to save families over $1,000 every year on their phone and hydro bills. And that's why we're going to stop profiting off our young people's student loans and work to make sure that the cost isn't a barrier for any bright student that wants to work hard. And that's why we're going to push forward with a bold climate plan that creates over 300,000 jobs and doesn't leave any communities behind. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Harold Stewart. I'm from Victoria, Ontario by Turkey Point. I used to live in Hagersville. I had the fortune of coming here and moving in with my stepdad, Ken Donnie. He runs Ken Lane Trucking with my brother Ron in Jarvis. I went to Hagersville High School for 2.5 years and played sports here, played sports in Dover and also in Delhi. I lived in every part of this Haldimand, Norfolk. It's a great area. And I'm ex-military, 4th generation war veteran, World War I, great-grandfather, World War II, granddad, Storm Beach D-Day. Korea, my uncle served as airborne, and then he come back and he was a police chief in Simcoe Regional Police. He was a Delhi Regional Police Officer too, chief there, chief in Simcoe. My father was a firefighter in Victoria for 45 years, chief is 25. He passed away last fall with a hernia operation from complications because he was trying to make extra money for his family because his pension was not very good. What we like to do at the Veterans Promotion Party Canada would be to make CPP tax-free, lower income tax, lower business tax, lower corporate tax, and also lower business tax. Farm tax, business tax, income tax, corporate tax. I got all four? Okay. Anyway, we want to make life more affordable. Canada's already great, we want to make it affordable. And with your vote, I can get to Ottawa and I can help out all the Norfolk. Thank you, Charlie, for coming.
So we're going to jump right into the questions. This question I'll be starting with our incumbent Diane Finley. Specifically for Diane, since your election to Parliament in 2004, what are your accomplishments in bringing jobs, infrastructure funds, etc. to Haldimand, Norfolk? When we move down the line, the question for everyone else would be, what are you going to do to bring those things in?
Well, I've been very pleased that I've been able to provide so much to our two counties over the last number of years. It amounts to well over $400 million, in fact. There's been infrastructure upgrades. Cayuga and Dunnville have brand new brand new arenas. Delhi and Langton arenas have been upgraded. There is a new bicycle trail along the front road. There have also been numerous upgrades to community halls, churches, and such in terms of accessibility through the Enabling Accessibility Fund that I created with the late Jim Flaherty. So many places we can get into now if we're on a walker or something that we couldn't before. Also, there's been a tremendous investment in Norfolk to help them get out of the tobacco industry and to help farmers transition to new programs. I continue to fight for those funds and have delivered for new trails down near Dunnville, the other side of Dunnville, Knights Point, and other trails in Norfolk. A lot has been done, a lot has changed here because of what I was able to bring to these two counties.
Bob, we'll just move down the line and go around that way.
Could you repeat the question also, please?
Yep. So of Diana was asked what she's done to bring jobs and infrastructure funds to Haldimand, Norfolk. And for the other candidates, what will you do to bring these things to Haldimand, Norfolk?
Ottawa should actually stop taking the billions of dollars from the private sector and redistributing it through subsidies. They should instead work on lowering taxes for all businesses and encourage savings, so this money can be used elsewhere. For example, eliminate all the corporate subsidies and the government interventions, and this will save us about $5 to $10 billion a year. By gradually reducing the course over the first mandate of income tax from 15% to 10%, This will bring in about another $9.5 billion. And then finally, abolishing the personal capital gains tax will bring about another $7 billion into the economy. There's about $25 billion in total, just by calling these things back alone and putting it back into the economy. No more wasteful spends. Put it where it's needed. Thank you.
We have an industrial park out at Lake Erie, 4,500 acres, ready to go. We have had no new development in over 15 years. It's accessible to Great Lakes, it's accessible by rail, it's accessible by transport, and we have an international airport 45 minutes away. That would be one of my first things. I would look to be bringing jobs to the industrial park, biomass, biofuel, those types of jobs. We have water issues. We have infrastructure in Townsend. Currently, Caledonia gets water from Hamilton. Port Dover has a moratorium. They can't develop. They have no access to water. And we have unsafe water in Six Nations and New Credit. I would work with the municipalities to get these issues resolved. Thank you.
The Green Party would like to look at creating incentive for retrofits for homes, which would create a lot of jobs in trades throughout Canada and also here in Haldimand, Norfolk. We would ensure people that are employed with the auto sector keep their employment by investing in electric vehicles. We will provide funding to nonprofits that work to build and restore housing for seniors and people with disabilities. And we will provide tax incentives for building rental and affordable housing. One of the issues with infrastructure, especially in Haldimand, Norfolk, is that our municipalities in Canada are severely underfunded. They get about 10% of the funding, and the Green Party would like to look at properly funding municipalities, and we would create a Council of Canadians that would have representatives from the federal, provincial, and municipal level to ensure that we are working across all levels of government to reach common goals and to make sure the municipalities are properly funded so that they can give the services that people in Haldimand, Norfolk rely on. Thank you.
So the NDP is committed to supporting and growing our economy and in rural investment. And one of the things we've focused on, and we're committed to creating 300,000 new jobs over the next years in order to, through the moving from oil and gas lines and moving into green energy. A lot of this also comes through supporting our youth and new entrepreneurs, small businesses. We're also committed to Canadian products. And as we know, that is a big part of our manufacturing, is we want to make sure that we are supporting our Canadian workers and our Canadian companies. So we are committed to making sure that our trade deals are taken seriously so that we can defend our Canadian workers, which will then grow our economies on a local scale. We have major manufacturing in Norfolk and Haldimand that needs to be continued to be supported through good trade deals, which we haven't had recently, as we know, in certain areas, or we've had to fight to improve upon. So that are just some of the things that the NDP is committed to doing that will benefit this community.
The Veterans Coalition Party of Canada will bring more infrastructure to rural towns by one. $302 billion of your CPP was given away last year to foreign countries. We will keep that money invested in Canada. Another way we're going to generate funds for rural communities, we're going to institute a federal lottery run every day from Monday to Saturday. 7.8, just for example, 7.8 million people in Ontario play the lotto. $5 a ticket, that's $39 million. 50-50, 10 top winners. The top 10% goes on the other side after the winners. The other 50%, top 10% goes to the debt, 30% goes to roads, 30% goes to schools, 30% goes to healthcare. That money will trickle down and go into every single province. Just in Ontario alone, $2.04 billion per year into roads, $2.04 billion into schools and into healthcare. We can put into just in Ontario in 1 year, just by inventing a lottery, without raising taxes. And another thing too, with the $302 billion that we sent overseas for the foreign investments, we only got back a 1% return per year. We would get more money at the bank uptown. common sense politics is what the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada wants to bring to Haldimand, Norfolk, and every other rural community. Thank you kindly.
So God has ordained that man shall live by the work of his hands. Work and the ability to create, produce, and contribute are a great blessing. Workers are worth their wages. They deserve adequate compensation and benefits. This is one aspect of freedom, freedom to earn and freedom from need. In an ideal society, everyone would be responsible to earn their own bread. The Bible says that he who does not work shall not eat. Our society is not ideal. There are some who avoid work or try to achieve provision by relying on the efforts of others, by relying on you. Many rely on welfare to supply their needs and wants. This is not fair, and it's not healthy for those who avoid responsibility for their own provision. The difficulty is in sorting out who truly deserves help and those who are milking the system. CHP will say no to those who are unwilling to work and will develop training programs and opportunities for employment. With today's minimum wage standards and working conditions, there are few legitimate reasons for union job action. Unions still have a very important role in protecting members from unsafe conditions and helping them maintain job security with seniority, equal pay for equal work, etc. But much of today's job actions, especially in the public sector, are the result of unrealistic expectations. Public sector employees should have pensions and benefits equal to those in private sectors. Public sector employees performing essential services like healthcare, education, public transportation should not use public inconvenience during a strike as a bargaining tool.
So this next couple of questions, did anyone want a rebuttal in there? Oh, we're good? Okay. This next couple of questions, a bunch of people submitted questions around this, and so I'm going to try and condense it into a couple of things. The first part is going to be specifically to Diane and to Kim, because I had a couple that were directed to you two. Looking at the carbon tax and considering the call for action on climate change earlier this year, which was supported by a lot of people, 3,000 economists, 45 recognized economists originally, and then signed by 3,000 further. To Diane Finley, how does Andrew Scheer justify saying that the carbon tax has proven to have failed in BC when their population and GDP increased, but emissions per person and greenhouse gases decreased? And further, when you talk about the $564 per year that you will be giving back to people by eliminating that carbon tax, are you considering the rebate that would be given to people if the carbon tax was in place?
Well, there's a simple question here about logic. If the government is taking $100 from you, and then in a carbon tax, and then giving it back to you, how does that help the environment? It doesn't. It can't. It will create a lot of jobs for people in Ottawa to use up more paper, but it won't help the environment. What will help the environment is if the big emitters are forced, as we would make them, to reduce their emissions. But right now, with the carbon tax, up to 90% of their emissions will not be taxed. That's not going to help the environment. That's why we want a real plan with technology where the big emitters are forced to develop and employ the technology that will help the environment, but will also help support smaller companies. We have some great ones that are developing technologies that could have a global impact, that would help the big emitters like China and India dramatically reduce their emissions while creating jobs here at home. Developing the technology is what we need to be doing to supporting people, because then all of our taxes can be lower because we'll have more people working to pay for our supports, our social services. But if we're going to help the environment, we need to take the fight global, and we can do that because we have the talent and we have the technology.
On the Liberal side of it, asking if you could explain the carbon tax and how those funds are being used.
Yes, I can. First of all, it's a carbon levy, And what it is it's a levy on the fee of production and distribution to offset the cost. If anyone realized, and I know that we weren't informed by our current MP in her monthly mail-out, or whatever the mail-out timing is, that there was a rebate for everyone on their income tax. I know it may have been simpler if there was a check in hand for people that they could have seen the rebate that they received for the carbon levy. I'm unclear as to why the progressive conservative government does not understand what the rest of the world seems to understand. I'm not going to focus on China or any other place. We're going to talk about Canada. And we're going to talk about the fact that the Liberal government is committing to meet 5-year targets that are put in place by scientists and by experts. It's to follow through on their commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement, and that by 2050 there will be 0 net emissions. And just in case anyone's wondering, and I hear about the 2 planes for the campaign, the Trudeau campaign party has purchased carbon offset to offset the use of a second plane. Thank you.
So, to all candidates now, we'll start with Bob Forbes and move down the line from there. What is your stance on climate change, the carbon tax, any other green initiatives, and also how would you plan to engage citizens on climate change?
Sure. Well, currently, the Liberal government is spending billions of dollars at home and abroad trying to fight this climate change or global warming stuff, as it's called. But it is an undisputed fact that the climate in the world has always been changing, and it always will change. But the impact of human production of CO2 is quite questionable. There's really no scientific consensus on the theory that CO2 actually causes this dangerously global warming today. The base of our plan is this. As far as human production of CO2 as a primary cause, that's different. We will withdraw from the Paris Accord and abandon unrealistic greenhouse gas emissions. We will stop spending billions of dollars to developing countries to help them reduce their emissions too. We will invest in adaptation strategies if problems arise as a result of any natural disasters. And we will prioritize implementing practical solutions to make Canada's air, water, and soil cleaner, including the bringing clean water to remote First Nation communities.
I just want to say that climate and weather are 2 totally different things, and that the Liberal government has put into place 1.1 million new jobs in the climate sector since 2015. And I can't dispute science, and I'll go with the facts. Thank you.
I just want to quickly explain how a carbon pricing system works. So basically, every time that you would buy something that has carbon emissions, like plane tickets or gasoline, you pay into a fee. That fee goes into a fund, and all the fees are collected and then divided evenly among Canadians. So each adult receives the same rebate back. People who create fewer emissions than average will receive more money than they pay in fees, while people who create more emissions than average would only get part of the money back that they pay in fees. This will incentivize people to make more environmentally conscious decisions, and it will incentivize companies to do the same because they would be able to offer their products for a cheaper price, thus being more competitive. The Conservative Party whole thing with technology over taxes is great, but the truth is a lot of this technology has existed for decades, and the government has refused to invest in it and to educate Canadians about their options. Geothermal has existed before I was born. Almost every other developed country has high-speed electric rail. Actually, Bombardier, a Canadian company, has high-speed electric rail in a lot of other companies, yet no federal or provincial government has ever chosen to invest in high-speed electric rail in Canada. We will incentivize and invest into renewable energy and electric vehicles and things like that, and taking the climate fight global is already happening. China has the highest amount of electric vehicle production, and they are looking at implementing a cap and trade system also. It's also good to mention that half of the energy we produce is wasted due to inefficient technology and not insulating our homes well, and that's why we'll focus on retrofitting homes, and we will invest in Canada in our future, and will create technologies that Canada can be a world leader in and export to other countries. Thank you.
I think what we really need to do is start focusing on the big polluters and make sure that they're paying their fair share. So it's not always coming down to the everyday person, you and me. We want to make sure that those that are really polluting and putting out that pollution in our air are being taxed on it and have to make amends for it. And that's something we really need to look at. We are looking at, with the NDP, focusing on things like single-use plastics and making large companies accountable for the fact that single-use plastics are part of our environmental problem. So they need to be part of the solution. We want to put that accountability back on them. Carbon tax is just one tool, but there's so many other ways that we can focus on climate action plans. We're looking at investing in green energy jobs. We're looking at doing things like creating a climate bank in order to invest in even more clean energy projects. Increasing our transit with electrifying transit and bringing back services like some of our northern train services. So trying to move it away from our high emissions to something that's more low emissions. So that way we can have more options available to us and have a greater impact on our climate. Thank you.
The Veterans Coalition Party of Canada will repeal all carbon taxes. These taxes are not designed to correct the devastating effects of man-made carbon emissions. We understand that man-made emissions need to be curtailed. We will use present technology to remove carbon produced during refining before transportation to market, and thus eliminating a lot of the CO2 during preparation for delivery. In our plan, we will commit to reductions of 40% below 2015 levels by 2030, and are calling for an 80% reduction by 2050. We will be mandating fossil fuel producers to develop new green energy options for increasing requirements for hybrid vehicles leading to low emissions. I have a family of 3. They don't fit in a small electric car. Ford is not going to make a pickup truck that's electric until 2020. I just talked to the guy at Blue Star, we're looking at a diesel. We can make high efficiency fuel economy vehicles if the technology is permitted. I don't fit in a little small electric car. I love to have an electric car. We live in a northern climate. Electric cars, sir, please, I'm speaking. We only have so much time. Electric cars only go so far in the wintertime. They go 40% less in the wintertime than they do in the summertime. Just like our Canadian winters, minus 35. I'd love to have an electric car. Everybody likes to have an electric car. We love to save the planet, but it's not feasible right now, but it is attainable in the future. Veterans Coalition Party of Canada realizes that there is a climate problem, but we can't fix it overnight. Thank you.
We object to the carbon tax on several grounds. Carbon and pollution are two very different things. Carbon dioxide is needed for photosynthesis. I'm sure many of you farmers rely on carbon dioxide for your plant growth. Higher levels of carbon dioxide enhance plant growth and production. It increases tolerance for soil infertility, weeds, insects, disease, and drought. We need carbon dioxide in order to survive. This tax will not change the climate at all. It will increase the cost of goods and services. Natural resources are under provincial jurisdiction. The federal government is breaching the British North America Act, of which our Constitution is a part of, by attempting to force provinces to charge tax. The conclusion that CO2 causes climate change is an unproven theory. If you do your own research instead of listening to the media, you will see there are many scientists who disagree, including the environmental of climate change, Dr. Craig Idso from the United States. And so there are many who say that it's not. There's 18 inches of water in Lake Erie at Turkey Point. It is a controlled waterway. Marshes are being filled in, eaves troughs are now being dumped into waterways instead of being absorbed by the ground, ditches are being dug to improve water flow. Where is that water going to go? Into the lake. Storms 70 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution, used to cover the northern part of Florida. That doesn't happen anymore. There was 175 feet of ice put on Greenland in the last 70 years.
We need to wrap it up. Diane, would you like to comment further on that?
I'll just add that we have a real plan for the environment. It's 60 pages long. It includes 55 very specific, realistic, and achievable things that we will do to protect the environment, including a green homes tax credit, so that technology we're talking about, you can use at home to lower your bills. You would get up to $3,400 back to green up your home. This is real. It will help here because 12% of our emissions in Canada come from buildings, so we've got to green them up. But why settle for just greening up Canada when we can help green the whole world? Because we have the technology, we have a responsibility to use it.
So this is to all the candidates again. Kim, we'll start with you this time and move down the line. Do you support, or does your party support, a national pharmacare system?
Thank you. That is a great question. Absolutely. The Liberal Party does support that. And I want to be clear that I did a little poll in my neighborhood this week, and it involved 3 houses. And in those 3 houses, there were 10 individuals. And out of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 do not have any drug benefit plan. That's 6 out of 10, 3 houses on one tiny street in Waterford. So I can tell you for a fact that 85, 98%, whatever figure that gets thrown out there, those Canadians do not have access to any kind of drug plan. The Liberal government will continue to invest in the middle-class Canadians that are working hard to build stronger communities, grow our economy. No Canadian should have to choose between putting food on the table or getting the medication that they need. An estimated 1 million Canadians are forced to cut back on food or heating in order to afford prescription medications. The other aspect of this is that if we look at the national pharmacare and we then have businesses that don't need to provide those benefits to employees if it's a national pharmacare program, we then have the opportunity for employers to add that money that's saved and get it back into the employees' pockets.
Yes, the Green Party does support a national prescription drug plan, and I, as a nurse, agree with them. Canada is the only country with a universal health care plan that doesn't include universal prescription drugs. There are 1 million Canadians that give up food or heat to afford their prescriptions, and 3.5 million that can't afford their medications. And 1/3 don't have employer-funded health care coverage. A universal prescription drug plan is expected to save taxpayers $10 billion a year because we would be able to negotiate with the drug companies at a national level to get a lower cost for the drugs that we're already needing. It'll also reduce hospital admissions. As a nurse, I work in the intensive care unit, and I've had multiple patients that have not taken insulin they need because they can't afford it, and they end up going into what's called diabetic ketoacidosis and end up in the ICU for 3 days. It is much more cost effective to give that person the insulin for free than it is to pay for them to be in the ICU for 3 days. It would also save employees of small and medium-sized businesses, and really all businesses that pay into health insurance funds. It would save them $750 per employee, and is expected to save $350 for the average family. So it is a cost-effective solution, and Canada needs it. Thank you.
We've been waiting since the 1960s to have a universal health care plan that also included pharmacare. This is not a new idea. It's been promised by other parties numerous times, but they haven't followed through with it. And we need to start having some action here. As the new Democratic Party, we are Tommy Douglas. He brought forth healthcare. The plan that we enjoy was supposed to be envisioned to also include pharmacare. So the NDP, we are not only just committed to pharmacare, we are committed to bringing it in by late 2020. We're also committed to introducing also a dental care down the road. So that is part of our platform and our commitment. Healthcare is not just about our physicality, it also includes our health, our dental health, our pharma health, and our mental health. And we need to start taking responsibility for that. We've had these promises for many years. It's time our people have this. I know my mom, who's also diabetic, spends quite a bit on her needles and drugs. My father went through a major surgery for his heart that requires significant drugs. Someone who is a pensioner should not have to pay out of their pocket or pull out a Visa card in order to pay for medication to keep them alive. We are too wealthy for that in this nation.
The Veterans Coalition Party of Canada realizes that $302 billion from your CPP, my CPP, your CPP, went to foreign governments last year into the CPPIB board, which deals with foreign investments. Different countries around the world get our CPP money, and then we get a 1% return. If you take the $302 billion given away to foreign countries every year, just in 2018, and you divide it by the 5.9 million seniors in Canada, you'll get $51,000. I'm pretty sure with $51,000 each, we can provide hearing aids, eyeglasses, pharmacare, and dental. Veterans Coalition Party of Canada not only wants to reduce, Veterans Coalition Party of Canada wants to take the tax off the CPP, also increase CPP, old age security we want to increase to a reasonable, livable standard so nobody lives in poverty in their golden years. We also want to provide seniors with free health care, being eyeglasses, dental, pharmacare, hearing aids, and dental. $302 billion divided by 5.9 million equals 51,000. I just did it on my calculator. I did it before, but I just want to make sure it was right number. Nobody call me a liar. Thank you guys.
The Christian Heritage Party has some reservations. We are cautious about increasing the role of government. However, we are in favor of it as it would decrease drug costs, reduce private insurance. Doctors would be provided with unbiased information on medications instead of the information they currently get from pharmaceuticals. It would also increase accountability and identification of overprescription. We would ask that meds that are covered are required for maintenance and restoration of health, that any uncovered meds would still be available to the public at cost. Accountability measures should be in place to prevent overprescription. Costs must be kept in check in order to maintain a balanced budget. And they must be available only to Canadian citizens, not to just any resident who comes into the country. Our concerns would be that government would have to pick which drugs to cover, which would exclude some that you might need. It would also promote pharmaceuticals over natural health products, which again, you would have to pay for out of pocket. And natural health products are often more superior in safety records. It would also remove personal responsibility to take care of yourself because your medicine's free, so what's it really matter if you get sick or get diabetes because you eat like crap? You really need to be careful as to how this is going to be implemented. You need the accountability measures in place. You need to make sure there's no overprescription of opioids and antibiotics because then there will be resistance issues. And it is a great idea, but we need to take our time and figure out all these aspects.
No one should have to choose between food or paying for their medications or their heating bill. And yet, almost half of Canadians these days say that at the end of the month, they're within $200 of insolvency. That's an affordability issue, right across the board. Affordability of heating, housing, and the medications. With lower taxes, people would have more money in their pockets to deal with these things. And yet, despite their promises and despite their claims, it's been proven that the middle class in the last 4 years of Justin Trudeau's government is now paying $800 a year more in taxes. That would cover a lot of medications for a lot of people. When he lowered taxes, he did it in the middle bracket, not on the lower bracket for the people who have the most struggle paying for their meds. So it doesn't work that way. But let's remember too, the Liberals promised a pharmacare plan in 1997. Promise broken. They promised pharmacare in 2004. Promise broken. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't rely on them to deliver on this promise this time either.
I agree that there really is a big disconnect between the Canada Health Act, which sets the health standards, and the provinces, which are the ones responsible for delivering these services. But we do agree that there is a long-term fix that needs to happen, and if we do take care of problems, fix them appropriately, they're less likely to occur. The issue is we need to be going through this from a more of a preventative perspective moving forward. But regarding the universal drug coverage, the reason I was looking at the parliamentary budget officer, and I think he called the Green Party, their universal plan for drug coverage, has an estimate has high uncertainty. What it means is they may promise you this, but there's a high degree of uncertainty as being able to deliver with what they say. So we actually do need to collaborate with all the important strategic stakeholders for this before jumping into it. It's not an easy fix. It's a complex problem that needs a complex solutions. So let's make sure we do get it right, because I agree, we should not be choosing between food on the table and medicine. We need to be able to make sure people get healthy and stay healthy.
Actually, Kim raised her hand first, so go with Kim for rebuttal. 30 seconds, just so you know.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that out of all of the individuals sitting up here tonight, the only party that is not in favor of pharmacare are the Conservative Party. I also want to make it very clear that the first order of business with the 2015 Liberal government was to cut taxes, not for 9 million middle-class Canadians, and raise taxes for the wealthiest 1%. A couple is paying $550 less in tax. No one is paying $800 more in tax. So tonight, for the rest of the night, I would like to stick to the facts. Thank you.
I just have a couple of points to make. One is that the diabetic ketoacidosis that I spoke of is from type 1 diabetics, which isn't have anything to do with lifestyle. It's a physiological thing where they're not able to make insulin. So it's nothing to do with lifestyle. Secondary, the Green Party does support preventative and complementary medicine, and I think we do need to get away from having big pharma influence us, and we do need to follow evidence and science and then start investing in things that have been proven to work. Also, like I mentioned, Canada is the only country with a universal healthcare that does not have universal prescription drugs. So why don't we consult with other countries that have brought in universal prescription drugs and see how they did it and learn from them and go that way. Thank you.
I just want to agree with the Green Party member that about the diabetics, they have to pay for their insulin, and the junkies that get free methadone and free needles don't. That's not right. I don't agree with that. It's putting a Band-Aid solution for the junkies, and it's not a solution for the
let's
diabetics.
not call them junkies. Come on.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Okay, sorry, drug addicts. What would you like to be called? Drug addicts, junkies, people with addictions.
It might be my mom. You know, like.
Okay, it might be your dad, might be my dad, might be my cousin. I've lost a buddy, I've lost a cousin, and lost another buddy to drug addiction. Okay?
Let's not call
I'm
them
sorry.
junkies.
I'm sorry for calling
Thank
them
you.
the J word.
Thank you.
Sorry. I didn't know that was Thanks for wasting my time.
You can have 10 more seconds.
So if next time ask me after when I'm speaking, please, because I don't want to waste any more of my time. I only have so much time to speak, and I'm new, and this is a new party, and we want to make a good impression. And I'm sorry. I do like Tesla, and I do like people that have addictions, but we need to fix their problems. One, diabetics need to get free insulin-free needles, just like the addicted people. And I agree with the Green Party member on that too. And now I'm going to take my seat. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry.
So our next question is again to all candidates. This time we'll start with Brooke. Currently, Canada has a supply management system for Canadian farmers in poultry, eggs, and milk. This means that, for instance, in dairy, the dairy farmers are not supported by tax dollars like they are in the States. Do you and does your party believe in the supply management system and that it should be maintained, or would you envision another system?
The Green Party does agree with supply management, and I think it has helped a lot of farmers. I think one thing that we do need to focus on is making sure that our farmers here have a lot of regulations about the different hormones and pesticides that they can use, and I think we have to make sure that the imports that we're getting from other countries follow those same restrictions to make sure that Canadian products remain competitive and to make sure that the food that Canadians are eating is healthy and is up to par. We also want to work with people in agriculture to start doing more regenerative agriculture, which will help bring down costs by working with nature rather than against it. It will increase soil health, provide more food security, create healthier food, and will provide sustainable livelihoods for generations to come. Thank you.
The New Democratic Party will develop a Canadian food strategy and are fully committed to protecting supply management and ensuring reciprocity in all trade negotiations. We believe that we need to fully compensate for losses incurred in liberal and conservative trade negotiations, defend products like canola, soybeans, etc. from unfair retaliation in overseas market. We also believe that we need to introduce a payment protection program for produce growers and take immediate steps to restore protection for growers selling to the U.S. under the Perishable Agricultural Canadian Act. We also really want to push that we need to buy and our own local food. This is really important. One of the things I teach is family studies. It's a big component of what we teach. We really want to support our local growers. That is so through markets, through education, through knowledge. So one of the things the NDP is committed to is making sure that we're developing Canadian food sold and processed and consumed locally. So we really want to make sure that we're tying everything together. The NDP is all about, we want to commit to Canadians and ensuring, be it manufacturing, agriculture, that we're supporting local. That is key.
The Veterans Coalition Party of Canada, we haven't really focused on supply management too much. The Conservatives and the PPC were arguing about it a lot. We just figured we'd let them hash it out. With the milk board, my uncle was a dairy farmer and he'd throw a lot of milk down at the end of the day. So is it quotas or should we have it cheaper? I'm not sure. I'm not a milk farmer. The best answer I can have is I'm going to go ask a milk and a dairy farmer tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to go ask a dairy farmer and I'm going to get his opinion, and then I'm going to go ask a couple more dairy farmers and get their opinions. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of involvement. And if anybody is a milk farmer or a dairy farmer here, can you please put your suggestion in the pink book on the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada table? Because we don't have a specific stance on this. We're kind of up in the air. We're not sure. Some people say it works. Some people say it doesn't work. We like your opinion. If you can put it in the book, take it, try it.
Lily?
The supply management system for Canadian dairy, egg, poultry producers, and the marketing boards which regulate the system were designed to protect essential agricultural producers from crippling market fluctuations and unfair dumping of lower-cost foreign products. Supply management is not perfect by any means, but it is essential in order to ensure Canadian producers of these products are able to continue to exist and to provide Canadians with a consistent supply of high-quality food products. CHP will review existing marketing boards on a case-by-case basis to ensure they are meeting the needs of the producers they represent, as well as Canadian consumers. Where possible, provision should be made for small-scale independent producers to serve niche markets without undermining the quota system. The additional cost to the consumer of shopping locally for Canadian dairy products has been grossly overstated by those who are campaigning against their supply management system. They speak of several hundred of dollars per family, yet the government is costing each family $2,971 per year in interest on the local debt, on the national debt. We would be further off to spend that money on high-quality Canadian milk than to be sending it to politicians who can't balance a budget. Thank you.
Well, since its inception, Conservative Party has been squarely behind supply management. I know that because when I was the official opposition critic for agriculture, I worked on that file, wrote the policy that was unanimously agreed to at our first policy convention, and which we have maintained ever since. We've defended supply management as we negotiated free trade agreements with over 50 different countries. We made an offer to them 4 years ago to protect them against any losses they might incur as a result of some of those trade agreements. Interestingly, it took Justin Trudeau 4 years, and just a few weeks ago, he offered them the very same package. It took them 4 years to figure out that that was what they needed, but they had 4 years of uncertainty. That's unacceptable. One of the best things about supply management that a lot of Canadians don't realize is the safety factor and the health factor. Friends of mine were talking about this story they had read on the internet about how officials were talking about allowing saccharin to be substituted for sugar in milk. And I said, well, that's a US article. And they said, oh, no. I said, yeah, go check it out, because you can't have sugar added to milk in Canada. Not possible, not allowed. And our controls are very strict. If you can't have sugar, you can't substitute it with saccharin. So it's one of the great benefits that a lot of Canadians don't realize about supply management, is that it ensures the quality of our products.
Thank you. Supply management is a government-imposed cartel that keeps the prices of dairy, poultry, and eggs artificially high through the control of production, the banning of imports, price fixing, and the prevention of competition in the marketplace. Supply management can negatively impact other sectors of the economy as well, such as the food processing and food preparation sectors. The supply management system is inefficient and fundamentally unfair to consumers, farmers, and other sectors of our economy. The People's Party will create a free, open, and fair system that will save Canadians billions of dollars annually thanks to the lower prices that they will pay for these products. Phase out supply management system over a number of years to allow farmers to adapt, but compensate them for the lost value of their quotas. And we will allow Canada's dairy, egg, and poultry farms to thrive and sell their products internationally, while making sure that anything comes in meets the same standards that Canadians meet now. Thank you.
The Liberal government strongly supports Canada's supply management system and dairy farmers. For dairy, egg, and poultry, it is the quality, it is control of the market fluctuation, and it's the control of the product. It was the Liberal government that fought hard to implement supply management, and we will always continue to protect and defend it for our Canadian farmers. The Liberal team is proud to support a strong and robust dairy industry that contributes to the middle class and driving economic growth in rural communities. 221,000 Canadian jobs were in the industry, the dairy industry last year, and it added $19.9 billion to our GDP. The Liberal government announced compensation of $1.75 billion over 8 years for nearly 11,000 dairy producers across Canada. The supply management system works. It will stay in effect. The Liberal government will always support it and have absolutely no intentions of making any change at all to the supply management system. Thank you.
say also that the Green Party and I personally really want to have informed voters and informed people. And I would like to hold regular town hall meetings and get the stakeholders in agriculture to actually listen to them about their needs. I think politicians do a lot of talking, and I think they need to listen more and seek feedback more and have that guide their decisions.
I'd like to agree with Ms. Martin here also. Being a new party, the Veterans Social Party of Canada, new politics, we want to hear from the voter. We want as much feedback as possible. That's why we have a suggestion book. And Ms. Martin is very right that we do need to have more town halls and more informed voters to make better decisions in the future. Thank you.
So our next question, I believe we're starting with Adrian now, is it? Yeah, okay. Starting this track. So we have a few things coming in from seniors, of course, that are of importance. One of these things is that looking at CPP, old age pension, along with the death benefit allowance, these types of finances that seniors are able to rely on. Do you have any intention to raise these, and how would you help seniors?
Thank you. So my parents are in their 70s, and all my family friends that are associated with them are in their 70s and 60s. And so I'm learning a lot through watching the trials and tribulations they're going through post-retirement. And they've gone from really great jobs to suddenly having to live on this fixed income. And I'm seeing, as I'm 45, so I'm seeing my own future unveil through their eyes. And as part of the New Democratic Party, I am so honored to be representing senior needs in that we have so many platforms related to seniors. The one thing we really want to focus on is to do with defined pension plans. I'm sure many of you have heard about Sears and the underfunding of their defined pension plan. One of the things the NDP is committed to is that no more will corporations and CEOs be paid out dividends when the pension plan is underfunded. Pension plans must be funded before dividends are paid out. We need to protect the workers' pensions. That is key. That person at Sears who was working on $15 an hour, who has now had a significant cut because of their pension, and yet the CEO is getting dividends and the board members were paid out dividends, that's not right. So the NDP is committed to ending that practice. We are also committed to making sure that we're protecting and boosting pensions, making medication free to help through our pharmacare program. And we want to make sure we're going to focus also on home care, making sure that those who wish to stay at home and receive treatment have access. That is something that we're committed to looking into. Thank you very much.
Well, the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada started about a year and a half ago. The leader of this party, he lives with his mother-in-law and his father-in-law, and he built them a place on the back of his property, and they lived with them because they lived in such poor conditions in Cape Breton, in Glace Bay, one of the poorest communities in Canada. That he wants, his whole focus is he wants to take care of the seniors. He wants to take care of his parents and his folks, which I think everybody should have that moral standard. I like to take care of my folks. I tried to help my dad. He passed. He passed trying to put extra food on the table because he couldn't afford to retire. He worked 48 years at Briars in Simcoe. He was a fireman for 45 years, and he couldn't afford to retire. His pension was nil. Tax-free CPP, number 1. Increase old age security, number 2. Number 3, increase CPP with the pharmacare and the dental plan. That'll also help alleviate some bills too. Seniors are the most important people right now. They raised us, and they're handing us over. They're handing over the keys to us. We need to take care of the seniors in the golden years. $302 billion went to foreign investments just last year alone from the CPP. That's my CPP too. I care where my money goes. I don't want my money going to China or Russia. I want it to stay in Canada, and we will invest in seniors in Canada and keep the money home. Thank you, Patty.
So the Canadian Pension Plan and Old Age Pension pension are helpful income supplements, but they are inadequate to meet the needs of seniors who have contributed greatly to our economic growth and development. CHP would implement a personal income security account for working Canadians. PISA would be a self-managed personal savings account fund for workplace deductions. It would be available when needed for unemployment and disability up to an annual threshold, but its primary purpose would be to provide retirement income. In Chile, where this has already been implemented, workers retire with substantial savings. The optional program would be phased in over time. Those who opt out would continue to receive CPP and to contribute to this pension under the existing rules. Old age security pension would also remain in effect. When corporations declare bankruptcy, employees would be the first to claim assets of the corporation in case of bankruptcy. CHP would not allow companies to evade responsibility for their commitments to employee pension plans. Also with the elderly, since we have time, we would also phase in, or phase out, I guess, the euthanasia and assisted suicide. Killing humans is not the answer. We need to provide pain control. We don't need to kill the patient, we need to kill the pain. We would support better access to palliative care, to comfort care. Every human life has intrinsic value. There is no such thing as a life not worth living. And through CPP and pain control, every life will be worth living. Thank you.
Our seniors built this country, made it the great place it is today. And we need to respect that. We need to support them so that they can live with dignity. It all comes down to affordability, which has two factors. One is the income they have coming in. That's predictable. CPP, OAS, GIS are all indexed. What's not predictable is having the costs of things that they need to buy keep going up because there are more taxes, and there are taxes on taxes. Do you realize that you're paying GST on the carbon tax? Tax on the tax. Now where's the value added in that? It just drives up the cost of everything. Anything you go to buy at the store has to be shipped to the store. The gas, the fuel that's used to get that to the store, that's going to have the carbon tax on it. It's going to have GST on the carbon tax. So the best way to help, if the ceiling is capped at cost of living for the increases, is to control the spending. Control the spending of the government, which has just promised $57 billion more than they put in their budget in the spring. Somebody has to pay for that. The only way is for taxes to go up even higher. On top of the carbon tax, that if it's going to help the environment at all, has to go up 5 times higher. We have to make sure that we get the spending under control so that our kids don't have to pay just for us to live as seniors.
On a near daily basis, my 87-year-old mom in St. John, New Brunswick, she calls me, she says, boy, if you don't do something for the seniors, I'm going to walk up from St. John and smack you one. I tell you, I'm hearing this every day from her. Seniors are probably one of the most important groups in our society these days because they have built our country. And yet, many of them are only a couple $100 away from being insolvent. And it's absolutely wrong. There's just no match between what we need to have for the seniors and what's being delivered for them. And it's not like those who are responsible for it, all levels of governments haven't seen this coming for years. It's not like millions of seniors just showed up here. It's been brewing for years. So our PPC plan is to make sure that we'll bring back those billions of dollars from overseas, from all the wasteful government spends, and we'll be able to use those monies to ensure that the services and the housing and the medications and everything we need for seniors is taken care of. They've built this country, and our PPC plan is to make sure that they get the services that they need. Thank you.
It's no question in everyone's mind here in this room that seniors are the cornerstone of our communities. Looking at the number of people in this room who are either close to being seniors or are seniors, it's very evident of the involvement that you have in your community. The previous government had raised the eligibility for old age security to 67. The Liberal government has reduced it to 65. It will maintain that it stays at 65. When we look, again, when we go back to the question about pharmacare, and if there was a national pharmacare program in place, the burden on seniors to get their access to their medications that would be covered would free up lots of dollars. When we're talking, I look at my own prescriptions or prescriptions for my children each month, and they could end up being hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So the National Pharmacare Program is a very important investment in our seniors. The Liberal government, the plan, has guaranteed income supplement top up by up to $947 for over almost 1 million single seniors. To help seniors be independent longer, we've looked at a housing strategy, and we've also looked at the National Canada Caregiver Credit, which makes it easier for Canadians to take time off work to care for sick or elderly relatives. I think it's important that we respect our seniors. We all will be a senior one day, and very shortly, within 20 years, seniors will make up 1/4 of our population across the country. Thank you.
I originally was planning on going into geriatrics because elderly people have always had a kind of special place in my heart. The Green Party wants to look at increasing the income replacement for CPP from 25% to 50% to ensure that elderly people can retire with dignity. 35% of older Canadians are dependent upon the Guaranteed Income Supplement, which is a lot less of a cost-effective way than the CPP. We will fill the funding gap necessary to provide that increase by allowing increase in voluntary contributions to CPP. And we will also ensure that any corporate pension plans that people have are protected during bankruptcy proceedings. We will require all corporate pension plans also to be fully audited to ensure that they are properly funded and managed. So when a bankruptcy proceeding or something does happen, to make sure that the workers do come first. We will also follow the lead of a lot of private pension plans and investment companies, and will divest all CPP from any fossil fuel investments, and will instead invest that into the technology that Diana keeps talking about. Thank you.
No rebuttals this time around? So for our next question, we're going to look at housing. On two sides of it, we had one side come in for seniors on that same thread, that it's very expensive to rent when you're trying to downsize, and one person mentioned that in Hagersville, they've looked everywhere. All of the over 55 complexes have waiting lists, and so do often the long-term care facilities and these things. So on that side, what do you intend to do to help seniors find more affordable housing? And on the other side as well, for first-time home buyers, the market is becoming more and more unaffordable. So how would you plan to deal with that as well? And Harold, start with you now.
Well, the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada, like I said before, $302 billion from seniors CPP go to overseas countries. We will keep that money here and invest in Canada by building hubs, treatment centers, facilities for seniors. It's a tough goal out there if you're a young person trying to buy a house right now. I'm actually, my house is for sale, and I'm looking for property, and I'd like to get a bigger house. I have 3 kids, and the wife wants another one. Or another one. So that'd be 5, I'm not sure. But there's a lot of mouths to feed, and by reducing income tax, the Veterans Coalition Party of Canada wants to reduce income tax, business tax, farm tax, and corporate tax. That'll put more money in people's pockets. That'll eventually, more money in my pocket means everybody in Hagersville can buy more things at the stores, businesses, their revenue's gonna go up, and so on and so on. It's gonna start at the bottom and move up instead of trickle down by cutting taxes. That's about the best answer that I have. That without lying, I'm not gonna lie to you. We're gonna reduce income tax, reduce business tax. That'll influx the economy. And with the $302 billion that goes to overseas investments, we'll keep that here, and we'll build seniors hubs in larger towns, so seniors have a place to go, and we can talk about long-term care like Norview and Simcoe with the PSWs. Another thing too, PSWs are drastically underpaid. Thank you,
Amen. Owning a home is a high priority for most Canadians. To many, this goal is impossible due to the cost of housing. Often both parents need to work in order to afford a home. This causes increased stress and transportation costs, reduced quality family time, and increased outside influence on child development. Broken homes add to the demand for housing as one family now needs to maintain 2 homes. Homelessness is not the same as houselessness. In many places, there are unused houses. In the rural Jarvis area alone, there are over 20 farmhouses standing empty. Real estate speculation, foreign investment in Canadian properties, red tape, delays, short-sighted zoning restrictions, and taxes have caused the housing prices to rise. CHP would reduce foreign ownership of Canadian properties, farmland, industrial, homes, and would introduce a new fair tax system to lower housing and living costs. We would take steps to strengthen families, reduce divorce, and make stay-at-home parenting more affordable. Thank you.
We have a critical shortage of rental properties in our 2 counties. I know really well because right now my mom and I are trying to find a place for her to move into town. It's tough. It's really tough. And we're not the only ones facing that. People right across the country are. We keep finding incentives for young people to get into the market, buying their own house. Problem with that is, if more people have more money to go buy the same number of properties, that's just going to drive up the price of those properties, isn't it? You're going to get into bidding wars. That's not going to make it more affordable for anybody. So we also, Conservative government would be looking at ways to work with the provinces and the territories, because they control a lot of the rules, and that right now are preventing rental units from being built. There are provincial policies that disincentivize, I hate that word, demotivate, shall we say, developers from building rental properties that are affordable, whether it's for younger people or our seniors. We have to look at the same thing at the national scale. There has to be greater increase in supply to match the affordability, to balance the people who are going to have more money to get into them. If you only do one half of the equation, it's only going to make the other side worse.
I think part of my comments from the previous answer kind of apply here as well. It's not like previous governors and legislators have known about this problem for years. There's just been poor planning going on for several years, if not decades. The problem needs to be fixed, and one of the areas to fix it is to make sure that we have the finances available to build the infrastructure, to create the housing, to create the systems to take care of the people. And the People's Party, through all of their programs, by repatriating billions of dollars from wasteful spends overseas, by getting rid of corporate welfare, cutting taxes in a lot of areas, will free up billions of dollars for this country to be able to allow us to spend in these areas. It's not like seniors just dropped into the world yesterday. We should have been planning for this for years, and our governments, Liberals, Conservatives, have been running the place for 100 years. They're the ones we should be pointing the fingers at. It needs to be fixed, and there are ways to do it, and the People's Party of Canada will certainly do just that.
Housing is a fundamental value of self-worth. If you don't have a home, whether it be one you own, one you rent, or one you share with your family, you have a difficult time preparing a meal every day. You have a difficult time showering. You have a difficult time raising your children. So housing is a fundamental right for all Canadians. Currently in Haldimand, it is a 0% rental rate, 0%. Norfolk, it's 2%. Both obviously are well below the national average. What I would like to look at is, through my experience now as a municipal councillor, there are opportunities for municipalities to have an inclusivity clause. So when you're looking at new developments in your communities, what can happen is that they can have an inclusivity clause, which would mean the developer is committed to a range of housing prices, so that we go back to building communities and not subdivisions. So you could have a $175,000, $200,000 home for first-time home buyers. You could have a home that price point for someone who's wanting to downsize from their home after they become empty nesters. You could look at a $300,000 price point, et cetera, et cetera. That then allows people to get into their first homes. It allows I'm sorry, I looked at that 20 seconds. It allows renters to get into the properties that were being held by people that were waiting to get into their housing. And the Liberal Party has the first national housing strategy ever of its kind. Thank you.
So the Green Party would like to work with provinces and municipalities to help encourage the use of accessory dwelling units. There's a lot of properties in Haldimand and Norfolk that would be able to have basement apartments or be able to have laneway houses or tiny houses or garden suites in their backyards. And this would provide housing for people looking to downsize and for people looking to move out on their own for the first time. We also want to change the mandate for the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation to include affordable housing, non-market housing, and cooperative housing, which they once did take care of as well. We will restore tax incentives for building rental and affordable housing, and we will provide funding for nonprofits working to build and restore houses for seniors and people with low income. Again, Canada isn't the only one following with this problem, so we need to look at what has worked in other countries and other communities and follow their lead. One example of that is providing a system to match seniors with younger Canadians and getting them to live together. This would provide affordable housing for both and would provide the seniors with some household help. Thank you.
I have the honor of working with your children and grandchildren every day, and I truly love what I do. And I get to see in the world of how they think because of that. And one thing that happened this year that really broke my heart was a grade 12 class I have, and I have 17 and 18-year-olds in the first week feeling hopeless that they'll never own a home. We were talking about future goals and opportunities and life planning, and most of them feel they will never own a home. They're 17 and 18 years old, starting out in life, and they're already feeling hopeless. So when I think about housing and the issues in our area, I always go back to those conversations. And one of the things that the NDP is committed to is trying to create hope again for people like the youth I work with. We're committed to 500,000 quality, affordable homes across the country. And that's not just urban. We also know we need rural housing. We're looking to invest in our rural areas as well for housing. We are also looking at reintroducing the 30-year mortgages and doubling first-time buyer tax credits to $1,500. The other issue we have is the foreign investment, buying up properties, and increasing costs for our housing. So we are looking at putting in and committed to a foreign buyer's tax to crack down on speculation that drives up prices. The idea that 17 and 18-year-olds feel like they won't be able to own a home isn't something that we should have here. Thank you.
Just a quick word. I do agree with you with that foreign buying, and I do like that. Another thing, by lowering income tax, we'll put more money in people's pockets so they can save and afford that down payment. I've had to put down payments on different houses, and the zoning. I think a lot of the old zoning for business and commercial, with if I want to buy a business or I want to buy a commercial or a duplex, you have to pay more down for CMHC for the Canadian housing. Yes, yeah, it's more like they want more. They want more down of a down payment. It's for free by farmland. Yeah, down 50%. Dave, thanks.
Restarting back with Lily this time. Looking at helping the most in our communities. What is going to be your platform when it comes to funding treatments for mental health, addictions, and dealing with the current opioid crisis that is affecting Haldimand Norfolk as well? What would be your platform for looking at funding treatment for mental health, addictions, and also for dealing with the opioid crisis that's currently affecting Haldimand Norfolk?
Marijuana is a gateway drug. It impairs judgment and contributes to traffic fatalities. Pregnant mothers also pass this THC to their preborn children. The CHP would eliminate drug injection sites and recriminalize the possession and sales of recreational marijuana. So-called safe injection sites for hardcore street drugs have increased usage and reduced respect for the law. Opioid abuse and the deaths of many from fentanyl and other street drugs demonstrate a failure of our society to inspire young people with a sense of purpose. Government funds would be better used in preventing addiction and enforcing the law. Governments should not participate in enabling self-destructive behaviors. At the last Liberal Convention, discussions were held to decriminalize cocaine, heroin, and make these drugs more available. The current Liberal government seems to be more concerned with the financial benefits of drugs than with the safety and well-being of Canadians. The government has a responsibility to protect its citizens from harm. Doing harm through legalizing the harmful is wrong. The prevalence of marijuana and other drugs is partially the result of ineffective and inconsistent enforcement and sentencing.
Mental health has been a growing challenge right across the country and here at home. Addiction rates have gone up, partly because we have so many new drugs that, for whatever reason, people seem to fancy. Partly because they're not getting, in a lot of cases, supports within their community. Social media is isolating them, making them feel alone. Remember when we had a problem, we'd talk to each other over the dinner table, together, without phones, without using our thumbs. That was good for us. We were healthier mentally because of it. We'd like to see more of that. But we recognize that there are a lot of contributing factors, which is why our government founded the Canada Mental Health Commission a few years back and made the funding for it permanent so that we would have a dedicated body of experts to examine the issue, to work with partners right across the country and around the world, because we don't have a monopoly on figuring this out. We did that. But we've also supported treatments, pathways to treatment, because too many people don't have the pathways to recovery, to get past the addictions. That is important. It's also important for our veterans. And unfortunately, mental health for them has been disregarded by this current government. Our government, or a conservative government, would do things like provide service dogs for them. All the evidence shows, and any vet who's used them will tell you, those are essential. Relatively speaking, they're inexpensive, but they could do a great deal of help.
You know, I think from a mental health perspective and opiate addiction, there's a lot of overlap here. And just looking at the stats, there's about 8.4 deaths per 100,000 population in 2016, 11.2 in 2017, and up to 12.0 in 2018. The problem's just getting worse, not just with opioid addiction and deaths, but with all mental health issues. There's a big disconnect between the services that are being offered and the problems that people are facing with right now. And our plan within the People's Party of Canada is to ensure that all stakeholders, like medical and healthcare groups, associations, and regulatory bodies, are mandated to educate and enforce compliance with stated recommendation guidelines. We will certainly invest in strategies to ensure that Canadians have access to full addiction treatments and services. And most importantly, ensure that all social community structures like religious institutions, schools, social community service clubs receive the support that they need to help educate their members in preventing and dealing with these mental health issues and unintended deaths. Thank you.
mental health probably affects almost everyone in this room, whether it be themselves or whether it be a friend or whether it be another family member. Typically a lot of the funding for mental health is a provincial issue, but the current Liberal government has committed $11 billion over 10 years to a national strategy in terms of mental health. We do have an opioid crisis. Unfortunately, the individuals who seek treatment for opioid replacement therapy, which some people refer to as methadone clinics, which they are not. They are an opioid replacement therapy. And they get a bad rap. They can't be here, they can't be there, they can't be downtown, they can't be in a neighborhood. So right there, we just put a stigma onto people. So there is funding in place for the opioid crisis, and it does have devastating impacts on communities. Where we need to look as well with the opioid crisis is we need to look at the prescriptions that are issued to individuals in regards to family doctors. So it's an issue in regards to the healthcare. Safe consumption sites are another issue that people have a concern with. They don't want it to be, again, in their backyard. They think it promotes things. And at no point in time has the Liberal government wanted to legalize cocaine or heroin. And I also want to make a point that Harper closed all 9 Veterans Affairs offices and the Liberals reopened them. Thank you.
So we need to face this drug issue and consider it as a health issue and not a criminal one. The opioid crisis is so bad that it's actually starting to affect the life expectancy in Canada, and on average 270 Canadians die from accidental overdose each month. And I actually would argue that those aren't overdoses because multiple of them are because drugs are contaminated with fentanyl, and for that case I would argue that's actually a poisoning and not an overdose. We need to follow evidence and science, and again, Canada isn't the only one with this problem, so we need to look at what other countries are doing and what's effective and follow their lead. The Green Party would increase detox and rehabilitation beds, and we would continue to work with provinces to fund things like the methadone clinics. They are effective. There is issues with them, absolutely, but I've encountered multiple people as a nurse that they have helped them. It helps get rid of the withdrawal effects, the physical effects of the achiness, the vomiting, the diarrhea, all of those things. And so, but what we're lacking right now is the mental health aspect. We need more addictions counselors. We need people that are going to these methadone clinics to see required addictions counselors, and we need to be increasing our mental health funding. The Green Party will create a youth mental health strategy and a suicide prevention strategy, and we will work with communities to provide more community-based mental health to keep people out of crisis, and we will also look at providing telepsychiatry to ensure that people in rural and remote areas can access mental health professionals where they are. Thank you.
So the real issue comes not from those who are facing drug addictions, but we need to end the criminalization and the stigma of those who have drug addictions. Okay? We need to focus resources on those who traffic and profit from illegal drugs. We shouldn't be targeting the everyday person and making it a criminal offense, but we need to put our money and our resources instead into focusing on those who make high profits from these drugs. That is something we need to do. In addition, we also have to work towards head-to-toe healthcare, which also includes mental health. Again, part of our platform is not just about pharmacare, it's also about all those other aspects, dental care, pharmacare, and mental health care. And the other thing is no one dreams of being a drug addict. No one faces that in life and says, that's what I want for my life. No one dreams for that for their child. So we need to also go back to root causes. How do we get there? So some of the things that the NDP is committed to is really focusing on our youth to make sure that they're making and have those opportunities to make good choices, or at least give them options and pathways. That includes like $100 million investment that we're looking at putting into programming for young people, looking into specific youth-targeted programs for after-school and art programming. Those are the things that are going to start changing our society and changing how we look at drug addiction.
Everybody see that stack? You see that? That's how much fentanyl it takes to kill one person. See that? See that speck? See that speck? That's how much fentanyl it takes to kill one person. Okay? I lost a cousin, 2 friends. Sad. It's a problem in Canada. The opioid crisis is a problem. We're losing a complete generation. I've lost 3 friends in the last 2 years from this speck because it was somebody put it in their cocaine or their speed or their marijuana or something and they died. And they left daughters and sons and grandkids. And it's sad. And we can fix this if we tighten up the borders. We can fix this if we build a treatment center for 150 patients. I call it the Homes House. This is my job in the party, National Socialist Party of Canada. This is my job to figure out how to tackle the opioid crisis. And I decided, I said, well, I'll call the experts. I called the Homes House. I said, hi, my name's Harold Stewart. I said, sorry to bother you. I said, well, how can we help you? Are you drug addict? I said, well, no. Actually, I'm calling up because I want to help people with the new political party. How do we do this? Give me some advice. Tell me, you're the expert. He says, what do you need? I said, you got a magic wand, you got some cash. Boom, what do you want? He says, I want a 150-bed treatment center in Haldimand, Norfolk. He goes, that's what we need. And I totally agree with him. Then we have emergency care, we have rehab care, and we have back to society care. Thank you, Charlie.
I addressed the opioid side. I didn't speak on the mental health, and I am in agreement with Harold there. I am sober almost 13 years myself. I did not have treatment here in Canada. My mother lent me $7,000 to go to the US because Holmes House had a wait list that was too long. There was the adult mental health services didn't have room for me. My son, from age 7 to 13, dealt with anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolarism. They gave him every label in the sun, but he kept trying to kill himself at age 7 already. We had to go to London, Hamilton, and Brantford for treatment. There was nothing in this county for people that need help with mental health and addictions. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out as well, I do work in an emergency care, which is often the first line for people with mental illness, and I agree that it is a revolving door and we do need to invest in more. Even if you go to Brantford or Hamilton or anything else, they still discharge you and you still don't have the supports you need to go back to the community. So this is a huge issue and we need to invest in it, and it's costing too much money by ignoring it. Thank you.
On the opioid issue, in 2010, Canada led the world in creating some good guidelines. In 2012, physicians across the country were surveyed on their awareness of these guidelines. Most of them didn't know about the guidelines. Most of them had no concept of the guidelines. There were special tools in these guidelines for physicians to use. They weren't aware of them whatsoever. In 2017, a new set of guidelines came out. So, 2 years later, in 2019, I decided to call McMaster University. They were handling the guidelines and said, let's take a look, folks. 10 years ago, people didn't know about it. What are you doing now? What's the access? What's the awareness of it? And they said, we don't know. Yes, we have a problem with the opioid crisis right now, and even our specialists don't know how to fix it.
That's it. Thank you. So, in an effort to squeeze in one last question, we are going to have a lightning round. Just 30 seconds for this one. It's not a super complex issue. So, if you were elected, what is going to be your policy in responding to constituents' concerns, and how will you find out what your constituents need? We'll start with Diana for this one. 30 seconds.
As you are probably aware, you get a lot of mail from me. It's to advise you of what's going on because we don't have television here. We have limited radio to get the news out. But I always ask for your opinions, always ask for your direction as to, are we doing the right thing? What can you tell me? What do you want to hear? I meet with the mayors, I meet with community groups, I meet with our local activist groups on a very regular basis and attend their meetings. and try to keep in touch that way, because I always want to hear what is happening here so that that can direct how I fight for things in Ottawa for you.
If elected, I will not move to Ottawa. My home will be here. I may work over there sometime, but I will be here a lot of the time. My wife's telling me she's a little worried about this, but she says, Bob, you have to be out with the people. And I do spend a lot of time with various community groups and service organizations. So I will continue with those things to make sure that I'm connected to the people, and I will ensure that we have not just a constituency office in the town here, but we will have rolling constituency offices as well. I will be out meeting with the people. That I can assure you. You can take that to the range.
Pretty simple. I'm going to continue to be a part of my community. I will be living in my community. I will not be going anywhere on a permanent basis. I already connect with my community on a regular basis. I shop here, I live here, I pay my taxes here, I grocery shop here, my children play sports here, and this is my community. I will be meeting on a regular basis with municipal councillors from both Haldimand and Norfolk. Not just the mayors on a one-off. I will be meeting with all of the councillors because they all have something important to say for every ward that they represent. I'm also very much on social media, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Everyone will be able to get a hold of me.
As I've previously mentioned, I would like to hold regular town halls, maybe on a quarterly basis, where I can engage with stakeholders about the issues. We want to make sure that residents here are informed and involved, and they know the issues that are going on in Parliament and how their decisions can affect that. Another thing I'd really like to do is be active on social media. The Green MPP in Guelph is great at this. Every time he passes, or every time he votes, he posts on social media and says, I voted for or against this amendment or bill, and this is the reason why. And then he interacts with people in the comments. This day and age, almost everyone's on social media. I don't know why more MPs and MPPs aren't doing that.
Although I'm 45, I tend to think like a millennial, I think, at times. So social media is a key part of who I am. I'm very active over the past 10 years, and always with thanks to youth, always on the new things. I also think because we're such a large riding, we do need two offices, one in Norfolk, one in Haldimand, and always that accessibility because of the large distances that we have, that we need to be able to ensure that everyone from Norfolk can reach me and Haldimand, because not everyone can get vehicle transportation there.
I have to agree with the NDP member. We need two offices, one in Norfolk, one in Haldimand. This is a huge county. Coming from Turkey Point, I didn't have enough time to go home tonight and come back. I had to get my wife to meet me halfway in Jarvis at my brother's trucking company, Kenley Trucking. Earlier I said it was my stepdad's. Sorry brother. It's yours. You bought it a long time ago. Just because I got a text from his wife. Anyway, apologize, Ron. You want it. Thank you. But another thing, I'm always open to the public. Everybody has my cell phone. I have my Mexico's party plastered on my truck. I've had it for about a year now. With this cell phone, I'm connected to BC, PI, to Newfoundland. Everybody in this party has my personal cell phone number. Ask my wife. She goes, why are you always on your phone? Because I'm answering questions and phone calls, but I'm always available. Thank you kindly.
So that is, we're running out of time. Oh yeah, sorry.
You asked about policy as well, right? Pardon? You asked about which policy? Answer the question. Repeat the question, please.
So this one is just on what your policy will be in terms of dealing with constituents, understanding their needs, and making sure that you respond to them.
Okay.
In 30 seconds. Lightning round.
All right, well, I'm just going to talk about fair tax because we haven't talked about that one yet. A national sales tax based on what you spend, not on what you earn. No more tax on income, death, or inheritance. Taxes will be charged on new purchases. You decide how much tax you pay by how much you spend. You like luxury, you'll pay more taxes. Live within your means, you'll pay less. Fair tax would reduce $56 billion spent each year on the CRA. No more complicated paperwork, saving receipts, printing off utility bills. Since they're... No. All right. If you want to know about fair tax, come talk to me later.
Okay. Now, sorry about that. questions tonight. Obviously, some of you, we didn't get to your questions. I apologize for that. We've had a lot of interest. We are going to have closing statements now, so the party members can tell you what the most important things are, I guess. We're going to start at this end of the table this time, so Harold, you are first.
I wing it. I've been winging it for years. It's best to wing it because you tell the truth that way. Nothing's rehearsed. Actually, I don't need that. Okay, my name's Harold Stewart. I've lived in all corners of this great riding, all in Norfolk. Went to school in 3 high schools, Goldberg, Delhi, Hagersville. Won championships at all 3 schools for sports, basketball, volleyball. Learned a good work ethic from my stepdad and from my family. As you know, Cadillac trucking outside of town. I spent a lot of time washing trucks, greasing trucks, changing tires on weekends during Thanksgiving and during football, Super Bowls, and different events. My childhood was working a lot and learning the value of a dollar. I don't have a lot of money, and I had to go and actually buy a suit and a shirt for this and pants because I thought jeans would be inappropriate, and a white t-shirt with a pocket would be also inappropriate. So I dressed up. And I'd like to thank Carter's Bensworth for that. I'd like to thank Johnny Shu and Sipco for that. I'd like to thank Carlos Ribeiro for helping us get our forms to get registered as an official party. I'd like to thank all you for coming. I'd like to thank all the press for inviting me. I'd like to thank all the other candidates for being here. And if you have any questions, we're a brand new party. And my favorite platform point on our sheet here is number 25. All suggestions for new platform points are welcome. Imagine that. We actually want to know what you want. Because what I want here in Southern Ontario is not the same as they want in BC. They want forestry reform, and they want to make money cutting trees and stuff. PI, they want to fish for lobsters. Southern Ontario, we fish for perch, pickerel, and frame houses, whatever. Trucking industries. Everybody's different with this, and what I think we eventually need in Canada is also with social media, like they have in Switzerland. It's called direct democracy. You want to vote on something? Here's your opinion. You have so many days to calculate the votes, and then the person in charge of that area, the riding, goes, okay, 95% of the people like it, 5% don't. I'll vote for the 95. So there's no more agendas, there's no more lobbyists, and there's no more getting something ran down your or up your. And that's how we like to do it. We like to change it a little bit because we're new. We take suggestions, and we like to hear more from the public, and we like to deal with the public. And we think we'd also like to take. It's also number 13 on our platform points. We'd like to reduce the members of Parliament paid by 20%, and we'd like to reduce the pension by 20%. And we'd also like to reduce the expenditures. Expenditures are huge. If you look up online, you go into public access, you can find out who spent what on how many pens and papers and every riding. Thank you kindly. My name's Harold Stewart, and I'd love to represent you for all the Norfolk and Ottawa. Thank you kindly.
So I just want to thank all of you again for joining us here today, and I want to thank my fellow candidates for taking part in this debate. Canadian families are feeling more and more squeezed as life becomes increasingly expensive and wages aren't keeping up. I hear from people every day that they are overwhelmed and worried about how they will pay their bills, which adds to their stress and fosters ill health. As a teacher, I am confronted daily with the knowledge that a significant number of our youth feel hopeless about the future, unsure as to whether they will be able to afford post-secondary education or even one day own a home. Seniors speak of continued struggles, and for some, a life of poverty and isolation, especially those in rural communities. We've had a Liberal government in Ottawa that hasn't lived up to many of its promises. Do you remember the promise for proportional representation last election? I do. I am ready to work hard for this community, to fight to make life more affordable, to improve the public services we all need, to bring in universal pharmacare, to stand up against unfair tariffs, to protect Canadian jobs, and to commit to making a Canada a country where everyone can live free from hate and bias. I'm here to remind you that you have an NDP option in this riding. I am committed to working hard for you and to keeping the promises that the NDP is making that are outlined in our very detailed platform. New Democrats are in this for you, and so am I. Thank you, merci, and
I just want to thank everyone again for coming out tonight. I'm so humbled and grateful to not only have been lucky enough to grow up in such a beautiful riding, but to have the opportunity to be here tonight and possibly represent us in Ottawa. We have entered a period of consequences. The growing gap between the rich and the poor, an unraveling social safety net, the plastic waste crisis, and a widespread anxiety and depression are all byproducts of a growth economy that is out of touch with people and with nature. I decided to run because I think we deserve better. Our middle class is floundering, my generation is drowning in student debt, housing is becoming unattainable, childcare is unaffordable, and millions of Canadians, especially in rural areas, lack access to a family doctor. Yet the Liberals and the Conservatives continue to prioritize maintaining and gaining political power over everything else. The Liberals and the Conservatives had generations to make a difference, and the only times they have done so is when Canadians have stood up and demanded it, or they felt threatened by another political party. And that is why we need to vote Green this election. We need to show them that enough is enough. It's especially important because we're projecting a minority government, and the more Green MPs we can get in power, the more likely we can hold the other parties accountable, and the more likely we can ensure they collaborate. It is time to meet a machine with a movement. It is time for MPs to follow the will of the people. It is time for Canadians to stand up for what we want. It is time to stop electing the lesser of two evils. It is time to elect leaders and parties we are excited about. There's no buyer's remorse when you elect a Green representative because our priorities align with Canadians. We think that people should be informed and should be able to directly influence the decisions that affect their life. If anyone thinks that I promised too much tonight, our platform has been fully costed by the Parliamentary Budget Officer to ensure it is economically viable, and we are projecting a balanced budget by 2025. We need to save our democracy from politics. The majority of Canadians want our government to be open and honest. They want less influence from corporate lobbyists. They want our seniors and veterans to be supported, and they want the environment to be protected and restored. Decision to be made by the next government of Canada will shape our future as a nation. Will we hunker down and defend the status quo, leaving Canada behind as the world moves on, or will we work together to enact the changes Canadians are begging for? We need a change in local leadership. We need someone that is active in our community and has a vested interest in our success. Someone that shows up for more than a photo op and a quick speech. Someone that will seek out one-on-one interactions and interviews with the press and not avoids them. We have the power to plot a new course. We can renew our democracy, create a just society, and ensure we have a sustainable future for generations to come. We can rebuild the Canada we want, and with your help we will. A vote for Brooke Martin is a vote for change. A vote for me is a vote for the future. It is time to not vote left or right, but vote to move forward together. Thank you.
It's hard to stand up after sitting on it. First off, thank you again to the Haldimand Press and to everyone for showing up tonight. When I reflect on the reason that I chose to run in this election, it was because I felt very strongly that we needed change. I felt that we needed a new voice and a fresh start here in Haldimand and Norfolk. I feel that we have a lot to offer in our communities, and together there isn't anything that we really can't accomplish. We are Ontario's garden, we're on the south coast, we're on the Great Lakes, we're close to the GTA, we're close to the borders. I can't think of a better place to live than Haldimand and Norfolk. So, I don't think we need a change in government. I think we need a change in local representation. Our economy is in great shape. Our unemployment rate is the lowest that it's been in over 40 years. It is currently at 5.7%. Over 58% of Norfolk and Haldimand want change. 58%, and we need to work together to achieve this and move Haldimand Norfolk forward. We need to work together with our friends in the Green Party and in the NDP. The millennials are the largest bloc for the first time ever. I can only hope that anyone here who has children or grandchildren encourages them to vote. It's very important to exercise their right and to become involved. I do see a couple youth here, not many, but a couple. There were some in Delhi last night. I also want to let you know that the Liberal government is committed to a Minister of Rural and Economic Development, which is a very important aspect for us here in Haldimand and Norfolk. I would appreciate your support on October 21st. I know that I will represent you well. I will make you proud. And on October 21st, I hope you join me and you choose forward. Thank you.
The People's Party of Canada was created by our leader, Mr. Maxime Bernier, in response to, in his words, morally and intellectually corrupt conservative politicians. All these people, just like the Liberals want to do, is spend, spend, spend. By the vote. It's really that simple. We are taxed more these days than ever before in our lifetimes. Politicians on both sides of the established parties blowing money out the door. Canadians deserve better. The Conservatives tell you that they are the ones to lead the country again. Well, a decade ago, when our honourable friend was a cabinet minister, their leadership drove various policies on opioid manufacturers which actually helped to drive the opioid consumption, leading to increased levels of drug addiction, which have led to the scourge and ravages that we have today in our communities. The Conservatives had a choice to make a decade ago, and they made the wrong one. People are dying today because of their lack of attention. Now, the Liberals have responded a bit too, but their reply is lacking too. We have young families who are trying to buy their first home, students graduating with crushing loads of debt, seniors who find it tough to make ends meet, employers who cannot fill positions, lack of affordable housing and senior care. Adequate planning has not taken place in time. Poor management from previous and current governance. It's that simple. We at the People's Party are doing politics differently. Our policies are different from the old-style political parties in that we will not buy your vote. That's right, folks. We will not buy your vote. We are different, but at the People's Party, we will end corporate welfare, cut foreign handouts, cut corporate taxes, abolish capital gain taxes, eliminate the carbon tax, fix the tax codes to reduce personal taxes, reduce immigration and focus on economic immigration. All the other parties are driving us deeper into debt, promising you anything and everything just for a vote. The People's Party is just the opposite. We will not buy that vote. We will not. But we will stop all of the wasteful spend. We will cut the political fluff. By doing this, all current federal monies earmarked for social programs will remain. The benefit of this is we all win. We will all have more money in our pockets. These are the bold reforms that the People's Party of Canada has. Remove the waste. The Liberals and Conservatives have had 100 years to pick your pockets. Let's put you first, not the political establishment. Together we can bring Canada back and unleash our economic potential. Together we can all win. Thank you.
Well, we've heard a lot about promises tonight, especially from the Liberals, an extra $57 billion worth. But we need to look at their track record. In 2015, they promised to balance the budget by 2019, this year. Promise broken. They promised to eliminate the first-past-the-post election system. Promise broken. They promised to restore door-to-door home mail delivery. Promise broken. They promised to honor the tax cuts that we brought in for small business. Promise broken. They promised to deliver infrastructure to municipalities like ours. They committed 60% of it and delivered a whole lot less. They promised to reduce taxes on the middle class, but the average middle class family is paying $800 a year more in taxes. Promise broken. They did keep one promise. They legalized marijuana. And we've seen the terrible effects that we're having as a result of their implementation of that with the designated grower barns that are around and greenhouses that are around here. At the doors, people are telling me that it's getting hard to get by. If they have any money left over at the end of the month, it's not much. But a Conservative government will change that. We'll eliminate the carbon tax. We'll introduce a universal tax cut, increase the seniors' age tax credit, introduce a green homes tax credit, make EI maternal and parental benefits tax-free, and we will also make sure that there is a minister for rural affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had the pleasure of serving in Stephen Harper's government, in his cabinet, as Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Human Resources and Social Development, Public Works and Government Services, Regional Minister for Southwestern Ontario, Minister responsible for CMHC, and Receiver General of Canada. I would welcome the privilege to continue doing that and serving you, because I know my way around Parliament Hill, I know how to get things done, and I have an absolute abiding passion for this community where I grew up, lived most of my life, and still continue to call home, because I live there. So on October 21st, please ask yourself, who do you trust to make life more affordable so you can get ahead?
Tonight you have heard us talk about progress. Let's think critically about this concept before our freedom to do so expires. Do you believe the following actions represent progress? Legalizing recreational use of brain-destructive drugs. Cannabis poisoning-related hospitalization for children and adults has tripled, causing huge costs for CAT scans, beds, nurses, and doctors. Is this progress? Legalizing biological males to use public female washrooms, change rooms, and showers. Male sexual predators are using the gender identity bill to enter women facilities, including women's shelters, to sexually assault and expose themselves to young girls and women. Is this progress? Redefining marriage to be anything other than a binding union of one man and one woman, and promoting, celebrating high-risk sexual behavior. Groups are now pushing for their sexual rights for polyamory, incest, pedophilia, and bestiality. Even the Toronto District School Board was pushing the love knows no gender by displaying hearts with threesomes on them to children. Apparently, love knows no number, no age, and no species either. Is this progress? Permitting ISIS fighters to live freely in Canada. Over 60 ISIS rebels returned to Canada to be reintegrated into society. Is this progress? Silencing public scrutiny of public policy. Government is naming difference of opinion as hate speech or bullying, restricting access to statistics, arresting pastors for preaching the forgiveness and love of Jesus, banning certain types of free speech, and removing ads that question public policy. Is this progress? 100,000 children are murdered every year through abortion. 60,000 of these abortions are the result of coercion from families, friends, and employment. They are not the result of free choice. We have digressed to barbaric paganism by sacrificing Canada's children on the altar of convenience, and we all should be ashamed for allowing this to happen. Is this progress? If you believe the above actions to be reflective of progress, then I encourage you to vote for any party other than CHP. We do not deem these actions to reflect progress, quite the opposite. We call Canadians to progress that aligns with the preamble, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. In this election, I urge you, do not vote against something, vote for something. Vote for true progress. Go to the advance polls October 11th and vote Lily Eggink. Vote Christian Heritage Party of Canada. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. It's great to have you all here. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. We'll have follow-up information, of course, on the election, which tonight is October 21st. You can find it in the hall.